an amazing panel. We have 3 French people, 1 Italian working in Paris, and 1 German moderator dude. Okay.
We'll do it in French.
We do it in French. Who speaks French? Raise a hand. Okay, it will reduce our audience too much. We stick to our preferred English. But I understand you have a different language than most people here. You have your own language. And this is the reason why nobody understands what's happening in the French market. And that's why we talk in English, because we want to understand what is happening in the French market, right?
Very true.
Yeah. So what is special about France? And the reason I'm asking is we want to look at the investors. We have actually the 3, I would say, the 3 biggest French financial VCs sitting here. And they all have a long history of operation. And what is so special? Why are there so many active investors and so many LPs? And why is this ecosystem so big? Matthieu, what do you think?
I think there's a culture for financing in France. What is probably changing now is the quality of the entrepreneur. I think what we have seen this last year, I mean, France is not Silicon Valley or some other places in the world where you have all this ecosystem in place. But what we are seeing right now is changing very quickly. Yeah, so.
Benjamin, we had a quick chat before, and you had told me a secret about your portfolio. It is very distributed around France. What is the reason for having so many entrepreneurs that you invest in, not coming from the capital, but from other places?
Yeah, so in France, the economy is quite... is it okay with the mic? Okay. The economy is quite concentrated in Paris, especially for the headquarters of large companies. And there's also a whole tech ecosystem in Paris, very hype, very digital. So until last year, I'd say the clean tech sector was not that much into digital till 1-2 years ago. It was a lot of hardware company or hardware with solution or with digital. And therefore, we have a lot of portfolio companies that are actually producing hardware, either batteries or plastics or some bioplastics and a lot of great technologies, but that you have to produce. Then these companies need facilities, they need space, and of course it's cheaper and much more relevant to go outside of Paris. So it's true that among the 20 startups that we invested in over the past 4 or 5 years, there's only one that is inside Paris, which is a digital web app company, a smart parking company. All the others are, the countryside, a lot of them, which it makes more sense.
Give us a quick elevator pitch about Demeter Partners. You did something very special. 2 VCs in France were merging. How did you do that, and who were they? Who are they?
Okay, so the French ecosystem, to come back to the most general question, is very dynamic in general. I mean, in startups in general, and in clean tech in particular. There's a French bank, BPI France, we call that. So that is a very dynamic to build a whole ecosystem of entrepreneur, but also to build an ecosystem of VCs. And the impulsion, the dynamic that they give is that they want investors to be able to support the companies from the seed stage to Series A's until Series D. And they don't want to see the best companies to be funded in the US because we can't find investors large enough in France or in Europe in second place. So the idea that we were trying to fit in and we would try to follow is to reach a critical size. So we're able to have larger funds, a larger team, and to be able to cover Europe with all sorts of funds. So at Demeter, we merged with another company called Emertech, which is a smaller management company focused on clean tech venture. So in Demeter, we are focused on clean tech, but we do venture, growth, and infrastructure. So it consolidates the venture team. So now we are a team of 30 people with 800 million euros under management. So we are following this dynamic that is happening in France for large funds being able to support more and more company in a later stage.
Fabio, you are a very happy man, right? Because quite recently you announced a new fund, an insanely big fund, 240 million euro.
Yes.
How is it possible? How can you raise so much money for your new fund?
Well, I think it's good news, first of all, for the industry, in the sense that there are investors, LPs that believe that there are a lot of opportunities ahead of us in terms of backing daring entrepreneurs that want to sort of change traditional sectors, industries, energy models are changing. Mobility, the way we transport people and goods are changing. These are exactly sort of the areas where we want to focus, and there are LPs that want to take opportunities. In our case, it's a mix of corporates and institutional. We are bringing, I think, new chances to entrepreneurs. Until now, or anyway, in general, it's not very easy, especially in Europe, for entrepreneurs to have funds that can write 10, 15 million checks. And while we see a spree of entrepreneurs that are building successful stories, I think it's good news that there are people around that can help entrepreneurs in Europe to avoid going to the US too early to get a lot of money, to fulfill or to do a bit more milestones here locally. It's easier, it may be quicker, less risky, and then chase for bigger opportunities overseas, outside Europe. So that's I would say less about ourselves, it's more about these guys, more about the entrepreneurs that we want to serve, and of course want to create new success stories, because the overall VC ecosystem, especially in our areas, really needs about that. We are seeing more and more performance coming out of funds in the last 10, 15 years in Europe, and I think this gives good momentum for people that wants to raise money.
Do you guys think that the competition between the French VCs is going up because now you're all pretty well funded, or is it rather that you will do more co-investments together with each other because you are still different players with different networks and different capabilities?
So one answer could be, we are friends. We used to play. We can play together, and we can team up for a large round. This is something we are fine doing. Once again, depending on the size of the round. The question is more, if the amount of money available is growing faster than the amount of good entrepreneur and opportunities. If that's not the case, then that will have an impact on our industry and our performance. Yeah, and probably just back to your question earlier, what we see in France, probably, I was mentioning the fact that the quality of the entrepreneur is better. What I can see is we have more and more young entrepreneurs, and there's probably a cultural shift that happened probably earlier in other countries, and is happening right now in France. We are seeing young, very talented professionals that were going to large groups such as EDF, NG in the past, and they are now more and more tend to go to the entrepreneurship, and that's very interesting, and that probably create much more value. We have talented people. They are growing up, they are learning, and I think we are just now preparing the future generation of very good entrepreneurs in France.
Do you agree, Benjamin, that the quality of the French entrepreneur is going up?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true that the type of entrepreneur has changed. I guess five years ago, we could easily say that most of the entrepreneurs in the industry had a first or long experience in the industry before starting their company, because it was a lot of B2B solution with very specific problems to solve, not accessible to someone coming out of school. And now you see a lot of entrepreneurs in our sectors that are just out of school. They want to give, they want to have impact on the world. So they build these digital companies that, I mean, a lot of great companies that we saw today also. You don't need to have such an experience in the industry to understand what's at stake. So now we see a lot of very young entrepreneurs, very well coached. So great at pitch, great at marketing the company. And 5 years ago, it was really technology oriented, coming from the road products and with no form and nothing to put around. It was just raw material.
Gonzague, something very special happened a while ago in your country. This is Gonzague, Dejouany. You have a new president, Macron.
Yeah.
He's inspiring many, many people. Give us a little bit of the feeling that what is happening in France now after the election. And I think I understand that Macron is very startup friendly. Yeah, he's visiting many startups and talking to them. So what is happening in this country, France, now after Macron?
Well, it's really interesting because, as you mentioned, today you can say, for example, in Germany, at the time that Germany economically is at its rising point, it's a political disaster. And in France, 6 months ago, it was the exact opposite. It was the economic disastrous situation, and at the same time, big and strong political hope. But it's true that there is actually now in France, there is a kind of smooth, fresh, positive wind blowing on the country. The future will say if it was positive or negative, but it still is. As a matter of fact, the people feel there is a new positive business atmosphere, and it creates, of course, opportunities. And back to the topic of today, of course, the smart city and startup scene together, it's one of the favorite topics of the new executive political team in France, and it gives opportunities in the sense also on the European level. For example, the strong cooperation between France and Germany. Both governments try since the election of Macron to find new outputs of concrete cooperation in the fields of sustainability or climate economics, so to say. So it's a good starting point.
And you are very active in two countries, France and Germany. And some people call it the Franco-Allemand amitié. Yeah, the French-German friendship.
Yeah.
What is why does it even exist, the French-German friendship? I mean, I like you guys here in London, and I like them in the Netherlands, and in Sweden, and in Ireland, and there's a guy from Singapore here, and from Barcelona and Norway. But what is so special about this thing between the Germans and the French?
Well, as you know, it's quite unique. We have a very special history between neighbors. And so there is always a strong will of both sides to work together very closely, and especially regarding to European economy and policy. And there are fewer and fewer people speaking French and German in both countries, so I decided, to step in that market. So, and it helps today because with everything that's going on in Europe, you see events in Spain, events in this country, other pressure from outside, and also the economic pressure makes the French-German axis and cooperation more important than before. And once you have said that, what's going to be possible to do more between two countries? And one of the targets is clearly to improve innovation funds between two countries, and one of the main subject in this is sustainability and smart city activities.
Fabio, you are in fact an Italian guy, but you are working in Paris for many years now. What is your impression about the French as a people and how they do business? Is it something that, how do you compare it? What is typical
so first of all, I can definitely see the evolution because I started 7 years ago, basically, so in 2010. Well, before I was traveling. I actually spent also a few months in Germany, in Munich, in London. Lived for a few months as well. No, I guess there is a lot of common things between Italy and France, but I guess what staggers, what it really impresses me is sort of the capacity really to make systemic changes altogether. Sort of the lack of fragmentation. The unity around like an objective, and there are of course political. There's a political system that helps, and the right people on top that also help. But I think it's this cohesiveness that you don't see very frequently in other European countries that make it somehow special. And I think that that's a good opportunity for business. And now I guess. I see, maybe I don't know if it's true, but I think I see this somehow conviction of the role that France at any level, and especially in entrepreneurship and financing entrepreneurial business, the role that France wants to play within Europe, especially taking advantage of the Brexit or the Brexit somehow consequence that we don't yet master, but I think where the current president is putting a lot of hope, and I think it's everybody thinking of this as a unique opportunity to attract a lot of talent. There is a great talent pool from France coming up, and this all talent is put at work within entrepreneurship, while before there was not the case, especially young people out of schools. But also what I see coming up, really the capacity to attract talents from outside, young talents from outside. It's starting. I think it's a process that is just kicking off now with all main initiatives like Station F and some other things that are happening that are attracting people from outside. But this is also where resides the challenge, like capacity not just to you do your own ecosystem, but being able to open outside and be seen as a country that is really entrepreneur friendly.
Quick question to the audience regarding the startups in the room. Who is already selling into the French market? Please raise a hand. Okay, 2. Who would like to sell into the French market? Okay.
Many more.
Yeah, so you have a lot of interest from non-French companies who are interested in entering the French market. And I think you are increasingly interested in investing in non-French startups, right?
Yeah, we do that. But just one point back before, just I was thinking about what's interesting about the political willingness and what Fabio mentioned. That's probably participate to the cultural shift, what we are seeing. There are some flagship. Fabio mentioned Station F. If you go to the US, people know Station F. It's very, and so that participate to that.
Big startup campus with a 200 million euro budget financed by a French billionaire.
It's
Station F, former station, train station, converted into a crazy thing.
It's huge. We try not to regroup your whole small university into large universities to compete into the Shanghai ranking that was just announced recently at the Paris Saclay. That changed the mindset as well. And there's political forces in place as well in the financing. I was mentioning the more than 200 this morning, and you asked me where does it come from? From large corporations, but as well from individuals. And there are some DTAX funds, and probably the politics in place will favor these DTAX funds. So individuals putting money into funds that are invested into startups. So it's all together that participate to that. So back to your question, yes, we do invest out of Europe. And so why do, because we're a small VC compared to the large one, even if we're big compared to the very large one in the US.
In the US, okay.
Yeah.
But in Europe, you're quite big.
So, I mean, why probably. But why would they need us when they invest? It's what I was saying this morning. When you're US-based investors, very easy to grow into this single market with English-speaking people. When you go to Europe, and that's a big question mark. I mean, it's such a fragmented market. You have so many languages, so France is one of them. And probably the investor there needs some investors in Europe to help their company to go there, starting with the biggest market, which are Germany, France, and the UK, if the UK is still in Europe.
Okay. Benjamin, your portfolio is quite French up to now, isn't it? The majority of them, or you do a lot of stuff outside of France, or you have done a lot of investments outside of France?
So we have different portfolios.
Yeah.
So we have some early stage, later stage. In the early stage, it's more French. In the later stage, it's probably majority French, but we also have plenty of investments outside, mostly Spain and Germany. We also had some experiments of investing in the US or another geography. We're not doing this anymore.
Okay.
You have to do it once and then learn not to do it again. So as long as we won't have an office over there, we won't invest in the US. So right now we focus on on Europe, and the later stage we invest, the broader, the further we invest, I guess. So for the early stage investments, it's mostly French.
And Fabio, you are very European now in terms of investment strategy, right? With the
Yeah,
fund?
somehow consistent with the past. I think since 2010, when we started to invest our second fund, we've been on average, 2/3 of our money goes to European and Israeli startups, and 1/3 to US. So we have basically 3 offices: Paris, Tel Aviv, and San Francisco. So we try to be balanced on this. And within Europe, the majority goes to France, but majority is 55-60%. It's not like that we are all in France. So that should continue. We are, outside France, have been historically mostly active in Germany, Benelux, and UK. We want to probably try to explore a little bit more the Nordics, as you guys are doing. I've seen throughout the day there are a lot of interesting things in Sweden and across Nordics. So yes, I mean definitely Europe is a big target for us, and not just France.
Okay, I want to say a big thank you, grand merci, to 3 sponsors who are supporting Ecosummit Paris, because you are already helping us.
And we're happy to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jan.
And Fabio already committed with the Aster, and Gonzague is hosting our pre-party, and he is
Put pressure. Put pressure.
Now under pressure.
Don't put pressure on anyone.
Because if he wants to leave this place alive.
It's where we are now.
Raise
No,
your
but
hand if you're a sponsor.
we never force sponsors, it's very easy going. The deal is he has to report back if he liked this thing here, so be nice to him, okay? If you have a good startup company, talk to Benjamin. And I can smell the food. Can you smell it?
I can smell the...
Which means
We
we
can
are
also
coming
see
to
it.
an end of this panel. Give a big round of applause to the panel.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.